What if I told you that the emptiness you feel inside isn't proof that something is missing, but a sign that you're finally awake? I know that sounds strange, but let me tell you my story. For years, I lived with this invisible hole in my chest. Every morning, I would wake up with a weight I couldn't explain. My body moved through routines. My face smiled when it needed to. But inside, it felt like nothing was enough. It wasn't sadness exactly, not depression in the way movies show it. It was quieter, a silence that followed me everywhere. I remember one night in particular. My room was dark, lit only by the weak glow of my phone screen. I had scrolled for hours, videos, photos, lives of strangers who seemed happier, fuller, brighter than mine. I wasn't even enjoying it, but I couldn't stop. And when I finally locked the screen, the silence screamed even louder. It was just me, the ceiling, and that old question I never had the courage to say out loud. Why do I feel so empty, even when I have everything I thought I wanted? Maybe you know that feeling too. Maybe you've had nights where you're surrounded by people, laughing even, but in the middle of the noise, you feel completely alone. Maybe you've achieved things you once prayed for, the relationship, the job, the grades, the freedom, and yet, instead of fulfillment, you feel a hollow echo inside. I used to think something was broken in me, that maybe I was wired wrong, or maybe life had forgotten me. Everyone else seemed so certain, so whole, while I kept carrying this quiet emptiness like a secret I couldn't confess. But here's the part I never understood back then. Emptiness isn't the enemy. It's a message. Let me explain. After that night, I tried to outrun the void. I drowned myself in distractions. New projects, new faces, new playlists, new habits. I thought if I filled my life with enough noise, I could silence that whisper inside. But the whisper never left. In fact, the more I ran from it, the louder it grew. There were mornings I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back. Tired eyes, a forced smile, a body going through motions, but a soul waiting for something unnamed. One day, walking home after a long shift, I stopped on a bridge. The city lights were scattered across the water like broken stars, and for the first time, I didn't pick up my phone. I didn't force music into my ears. I just stood there, in the silence I had been avoiding for years, and it hit me. The emptiness wasn't asking to be buried. It was asking to be heard. That night, I wrote for the first time in years. Not a poem, not a polished text, just raw sentences. Ugly handwriting, random words, questions. I wrote about the fears I never admitted, the anger I swallowed, the dreams I abandoned because they felt unrealistic. And as I wrote, the emptiness shifted. It didn't disappear, but it felt less like a hole and more like a doorway. Here's what I discovered. We mistake emptiness for lack, but emptiness is space, and space is possibility. Think about it. When a room is empty, it's not broken. It's ready to be filled with something new. When canvas is blank, it's not useless. It's waiting for creation. The same is true for us. The reason you feel empty might not be because your life is wrong, but because you've been filling it with things that were never truly yours. I realized most of my life had been built from expectations, from family, from society, from comparisons online. I studied what looked safe. I acted how others expected. I chased what people said mattered. And sure, it gave me some comfort, some applause, but it never gave me myself. That's the cruel trick. You can have a life that looks full from the outside and still feel empty inside. Because fullness isn't about quantity. It's about alignment. I'll be honest, the shift didn't happen overnight. It was messy. Some days the void swallowed me whole. Some days I slipped back into old habits, old distractions. But little by little, I started asking myself better questions. What if emptiness isn't a curse, but an invitation? What if the things I'm avoiding are actually the keys to feeling alive? What do I really want when nobody else is watching? And slowly, I began experimenting. I stopped saying yes to people just to avoid disappointing them. I started taking long walks without music, letting silence be my companion. I returned to childhood passions I had abandoned, sketching, writing, even silly things like building playlists of songs I actually loved instead of what was trending. And do you know what happened? The emptiness didn't vanish, but it transformed. It became less of a wound and more of a compass. Every time I felt that hollow ache, instead of panicking, I leaned in. I asked, what part of me is hungry? What truth have I been ignoring? Sometimes the answer was rest. Sometimes it was honesty in a relationship. Sometimes it was courage to try something uncertain. And here's the part I want you to hear clearly. Feeling empty doesn't mean you're failing at life. It means life is inviting you to stop pretending. The truth is, most of us are terrified of silence, because silence reveals what we're running from. But the moment you stop running, the moment you sit with that emptiness instead of numbing it, that's when you finally begin to meet yourself. And that changes everything. Because once you meet yourself, not the version others applaud, not the mask you wear in public, but the raw, unedited you realize you're not broken. You're just unfinished. The emptiness you feel isn't a void to be feared. It's a canvas waiting for your colors. It's a stage waiting for your voice. It's a garden waiting for your hands. And the scariest, most liberating truth is this: no one else can fill it for you. Not love, not success, not followers, not validation. They can add to your life, but they can't replace the work of listening to your own soul. The night I understood this, I cried. Not because the pain was gone, but because for the first time, the pain made sense. I realized that emptiness is proof of life, proof that my heart still wants more, proof that I'm still capable of longing, of dreaming, of becoming. So if you feel empty right now, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're at the beginning of something honest. The question is, will you numb it or will you listen? Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me earlier. The small moments matter. The first journal entry, the first honest conversation, the first time you choose to be alone without fear. These are victories. They don't look dramatic, but they're seeds, and seeds take time. So don't measure your worth by how full your life looks right now. Measure it by the courage it takes to sit with the emptiness and ask it what it wants to teach you. Because maybe the emptiness isn't here to hurt you. Maybe it's here to guide you back to yourself. And once you understand that, once you begin walking that quiet road back inward, you realize something powerful. Fullness was never about what you had. It was about who you became in the process. So tonight, when the silence comes, don't run. Don't scroll it away. Don't drown it with noise. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Ask it, what are you trying to show me? It might be uncomfortable. It might bring tears. But on the other side of that discomfort is the beginning of a life that actually feels like yours. And if you still feel empty tomorrow, don't despair. Healing isn't linear. Emptiness doesn't vanish in a day. But every time you listen instead of running, every time you honor yourself instead of betraying yourself, the emptiness turns into space. And in that space, something new can grow. Maybe peace, maybe clarity, maybe love, maybe the version of you that's been waiting all along. And when that happens, you'll look back and realize emptiness wasn't the end. It was the invitation you needed. So if you still feel empty, watch this again tomorrow and the next day, until you remember that emptiness isn't the proof you're lost. It's the reminder that you're still searching, still alive, still capable of building a life that feels true. And that, my friend, is the beginning of everything.